Picture this. It's December 31st, 2016. You're stood with your girlfriend, and the countdown to 2017 begins. As you slowly lean in to kiss her, time slows down, and you have a vision of the games that are going to release in 2017, and my god, does it look like a good fucking year for gaming. Shadow of War, featuring a Balrog and sexy Shelob. For Honor, intense, high-skilled medieval combat. Halo Wars 2, Halo's glorious return to RTS. Destiny 2, this time with a focus on Bungie's legendary storytelling. Call of Duty World War 2, CoD's much-awaited return to boots-on-the-ground gameplay and the setting that made the franchise so popular in the first place. And Battlefront 2, what should be a direct improvement over the dumpster fire that was Battlefront 1, and it's launching alongside The Last Jedi. And that was just a small glimpse into 2017 that you got. The vision ends, back to the real world now, and the countdown is at 2, then 1. And as you hear Happy New Year, your girlfriend kicks you in the balls and runs off with your best friend Jakey to South Dakota. You thought that was the worst that was going to happen in the new year? Oh my sweet summer child, if only you knew how bad things really were. Today, we're taking a trip down memory lane and looking at how 2017 changed gaming forever, and why it will now be formally known as the year of the microtransaction. After a nice calm January, February kicked it into overdrive with the microtransactions, starting with Ubisoft's For Honor. The game had a less than stellar launch, with rampant hackers, no dedicated servers, swaths of AFK farmers, and as a result, a rapidly declining population. Can you guess what the cherry on top's gonna be? Yeah, well, the game had one of those typical pseudo-currencies that you could exchange your real-life cash for, called Steel, which you could then use to buy emotes, gear and weapons that altered your stats, and other cosmetic stuff. But don't worry, you could earn Steel by playing the game, so it's perfectly okay, right?
Say what?
I'm kidding, of course, this shit is not okay in a full-priced $60 game. But don't worry, it gets worse. A user on Reddit did the math and found that to just unlock the game's base content, not including future DLC stuff, it was gonna take 1,098,000 Steel. Now on launch, someone dedicated to the game would get roughly 3,500 Steel per day, and that's if they really grinded, meaning it'd take them almost a year to get everything. And for casuals who play an hour or 2 per day, which is still more than most players, it'd take over 2.5 years. Of course, you could skip this ridiculous 21,987 hour grind by simply buying 7 of the $100 Steel packs, which gave you almost enough to buy just about everything for the low price of a peachy $700. Lovely. A dev defended this by saying, "We never intended for you to unlock everything in the game," and that might well be the worst pro-microtransaction argument I have ever seen. So you're now saying that people shouldn't be trying to 100% your game. How backwards. Steel gains were eventually increased, but only because of the outrage. Bear that in mind. If there was no outrage, it wouldn't have changed. Do not forget that. Now, you guys know how much I loved Halo Wars 2. The game was fantastic. Mostly. To help break players new to the RTS genre into it, they included a game mode called Blitz, which was essentially all of the battles of an RTS without the army and base building. You build a deck of cards, each equating to a unit, and then go into a game and spawn them to fight against the enemy. To spawn them, you need energy, which you get over time by holding more of the capture points. Luckily, none of the cards are one-time use, which means that as soon as you've locked one card, you have it for good, but the more duplicates of that card that you get in the loot crates, the more they level up and the more powerful they become. Of course, you can buy the packs with real-life dinero, and the higher level units are significantly more powerful than lower level units, meaning that somebody could just spend £500 out of the gate on packs, get most of their cards to level 6, and then just fucking destroy anybody in Blitz. And when I say destroy, I'd fucking mean it. This video from Luke the Notable demonstrates how a level 6 Reaver, a unit which is built purely to counter air units, with only this little tiny plasma pea shooter on the front to attack anything else, somehow manages to beat a level 1 hunter unit whose only use is to effectively counter land vehicles. Thankfully, this shite was contained to a single game mode and it didn't affect the rest of the stellar game, but it's sad that a mode that would have been really good to ease new audiences into the micromanagement of the RTS genre was ruined by awfully broken microtransactions. Oh my, so this was a game with a fucking plethora of problems. Problems so grave that the Mass Effect series ended up getting put to sleep for the time being, so EA's resources can be diverted towards their next cash cow, Anthem, but I digress. Despite all the fucking glaring problems, EA did what EA does and made sure the game's multiplayer had microtransactions. In these imaginative RNG loot crates, you got cosmetic shit like characters, XP boosts, weapon mods that affect the stats of weapons in multiplayer, and more. But they were only for the multiplayer, which was PvE, but that's not exactly the issue here. The issue is that the game had some very clear, glaring problems prior to launch, and the development was apparently a nightmare too, which doesn't surprise me at all. I just can't fathom how anyone can deem it reasonable for a studio to spend time crafting an RNG loot crate system when they're too understaffed, too under-resourced, and in some cases, by no fault of their own, too underskilled to make the base game a solid, stable, and up-to-par experience. EA need to get their fucking priorities in check, but saying that is like talking to a brick wall, because in their mind, they already have done.
What, you ask me if I'm happy? Listen, I've got £87 million in the bank, I've got a Rolls Royce. Am I happy with that? No, I'm not! I want more!
And we know that this was only the beginning of shit that EA would pull in 2017. Now for a change of pace. Injustice 2 was, to the best of my knowledge, the year's first kickback against hardcore microtransactions, so I figured it was worth mentioning. The game did have loot crates that contained gear that altered the stats of your character, but these could only be earned via in-game currency. There were other loot crates, however, that could be bought for real-life money, but they only contained cosmetic items like shaders, with the developer taking a pretty firm stance against gameplay-altering and pay-to-win microtransactions. These cosmetics could then be applied to the gear that alters stats, but worked sort of like keepsake keys in RuneScape, offering no statistical differences whatsoever, just a pure cosmetic change. So microtransactions still existed, they were just far less aggressive and game-breaking than the rest of the games in 2017, so hats off to NetherRealm Studios for taking a stand. CoD 4, a game so good that it can surely only get better with a remaster, right? Wrong. Of course, to bring the game up to 2016's stellar fucking standards, Activision and Raven decided it would be a wise idea to add supply drops to CoD 4's perfectly balanced multiplayer. Of course, they waited to add them until after the reviews came in, so they couldn't be slated for them, which is really fucking sleazy in my opinion. These supply drops went on to contain weapons, some of which were entirely new to the series, and as you'd expect, a number of them were seriously fucking powerful. Now, it was possible to get these weapons without paying a single penny. You could work your way up these things called collections, which were essentially ladders of items that cost more as you go up, and once you've bought everything in a specific collection, you unlock the weapon. Sadly though, the currency you earned tied to these things by playing games, you earned at an absolute fucking pittance. So if you wanted to unlock everything, you either had to grind for God knows how long to get enough credits for supply drops, or just to buy the items straight up, or, you know, you could just drop a couple $100 on supply drops and maybe get what you want. I feel like this game is a perfect allegory for how shitty gaming has become since 2007. So, before we cover Destiny, we're going to cover this massive unethical fucking mess of a game, which may be the absolute worst offender of 2017. While other sports like FIFA and Madden played their usual shit with buying overpriced packs of players, causing kids to spend thousands upon thousands on their parents' credit cards, 2K's NBA 2018 took it to the next level. While EA were playing two-dimensional chess, 2K were playing cross-dimensional underwater Game of Thrones Monopoly. They have this mode called My Career or something, where you make your own player and you level up their attributes, their overall skill, and upgrade their looks and clothing by playing and winning with them, which in turn unlocked this currency called VC, virtual currency, which you use for these cosmetics and statistical upgrades. You start the game with 6,000 VC to upgrade your character, who starts at 60 out of 100 skill, and using all of that VC will only get him to level 62. The average player gets around 500 VC per game. So yeah, you can see where I'm going with this. It's also going to cost an absolute extortionate amount to customize your character too, like 1500 VC to change his damn haircut, of which you can't even preview, and upwards of 1000 VC for a fucking tattoo. Of course, you can skip this legit and not artificially created grind by buying their best value VC pack for a small fee of $100. Numerous times to maybe give your basketball character the ability to throw the ball just that little bit further. Right, well, we've already covered this beast in one video, and I'm already working on a second video looking specifically at its microtransactions, so I'll keep this one short and sweet. The game launched with fuck all content, but of course it did have a fully functioning and fully stocked RNG loot crate pool. Bungie were then caught secretly throttling the amount of XP you were getting, meaning the API was registering you as getting less XP than the in-game XP bar was telling you, thus making it take longer to get bright engrams, Destiny's loot crates. When Bungie were found out doing this, they fixed it, then secretly doubled the amount of XP needed to level up. Then comes the first DLC, Curse of Osiris. The content that isn't locked behind loot crates was incredibly lame, and the content that was locked behind loot crates was a majority of the new stuff that you paid for with the DLC, so you literally paid to spin the wheel some more. Granted, they're all cosmetic things, but they're part of the end game. The end game that's now locked behind RNG paywalls. Then comes the Christmas event, the Dawning, and what better time than the Season of Giving to lock even more shit behind RNG paywalls, eh? Well, this event's microtransactions were even worse. You don't even get the loot crates that give you access to the new Dawning items by leveling up. You have to either do a specific mission, which will only give you access to pretty much the low tier stuff in the Dawning's loot, aka not the exotics and all the good shit that you actually want, or just buy them for real life money. If you go the route of earning them in-game and not spending a single dollar, you're limited to 3 of the loot crates a week, so 9 over the total span of the event, which gives you the potential to unlock 18 out of 59 of the Dawning items, and that's only if you're the luckiest bastard since Master Chief, which honestly is just pitiful if you're a completionist. You literally have to spend money if you want to 100% this game. Dude, at this rate, 2018 literally cannot get any worse for gaming. I know I'm probably jinxing it right now, but with the way that 2017 went, I refuse to believe that 2018 can be even worse. Oh man, so as a huge lifelong Tolkien fan who grew up on Lord of the Rings games, this shit is depressing. I fucking love Shadow of Mordor, and when I heard that Shadow of War was happening and it was gonna feature fucking Balrogs and the Witch King, I was over the moon hyped, but of course the hype deflated in mere milliseconds when I heard that loot crates were gonna feature that you could either earn or buy with real life money, and that they directly affect your character's strength, damage, and ability in the fucking single player, along with giving you orcs of varying power for your army. Something that you had to actually work for, that you could only work for in Shadow of Mordor. Granted, you can earn all of the stuff in loot crates without spending a penny, but the game's true ending is locked behind the final act of the game called Shadow Wars, which is supposedly this super grindy and long experience, and during which it's very easy to run out of Mirian, which is the in-game currency, meaning that you can't buy any loot crates to get better gear and orcs to progress through the act faster. Therefore, you're edged towards buying loot crates with real life money, or of course grinding for even longer to get the orcs and gear yourself without loot crates. However, there was a way to circumvent this. The loot crate market, didn't exist when playing offline. So people ended up playing the entire game offline to experience the untampered experience in all of its salted pork glory. My oh my, the arguably worst offender of the year, Battlefront 2 was a pay-to-win fucking mess. The loot crates gave you star cards, crafting parts, and victory poses. Star cards were the main problem. They give certain upgrades and different weapons to classes, heroes, and ships, and depending on the rarity of the card, they're more effective. And when I say more effective, I fucking mean more effective. I mean pure invincibility while in the air as Boba Fett effective. Totally overpowered and fucking broken. Although you could upgrade your characters using crafting parts, that still requires that you buy loot crates, as that's the only way to get them, and to get the loot crates, you need credits, which you could earn at an absolute pathetic rate via gameplay, meaning people who dropped hundreds and thousands of dollars had a significant gameplay advantage over everybody else. As we all know by now, this didn't go well at all, and along with the fact that it took about 40 hours of gameplay to unlock Vader and Luke, the Battlefront subreddit went into fucking meltdown, and when EA tried to calm it down, they were aptly rewarded with the most downvoted Reddit comment in history. Thankfully, this does seem like the straw that broke the camel's back, and as a result, Apple are now taking a stand against predatory microtransactions in mobile games, and multiple different governments are going to be stepping in and regulating what is very clearly gambling aimed at vulnerable underage players. EA and DICE did eventually reduce the cost of heroes, and the microtransaction currency was removed, at least for the time being, but don't let this distract you from the fact that they only did this because of the outrage, and that the microtransactions will be coming back at a later date. So brace yourselves for yet another shitstorm in the near future.
They'll soon be back, and in greater numbers.
And finally, we have the most anticipated game of the year that ended up taking supply drops back in time to World War II. Of course, they weren't in the game at launch, so reviewers couldn't slate the game for them, but the weapons that weren't in the game were found in the game files, and despite that, we all knew it was coming anyway. Of course, the supply drops are full of pointless crap, like shitty pistol grips and wasteful title cards, meaning that you're going to have to spend just that little bit more money to get that one weapon that you really want. What's worse than this is that before its launch, people discovered some Activision patents for matchmaking systems that, instead of focusing on matching players with other players of similar skill, or to make the game balanced, they focused instead on matching them with players who paid for loot crates and got one of the OP weapons that they put in them, and to also make sure the players matched on a map that the loot crate weapons excelled on. And then, when the player is repetitively killed by said gun, they get hints to buy supply drops to try and get it, and if they do, they then get put in the same situation, but now they're just on the other side of the equation. Now, Activision will not be filing patents for nothing, I can assure you that, and you can bet that despite all of the naysayers, this system may already be in World War II, and if it's not, it's absolutely going to be in future Call of Duty games, or Destiny games, or hell, anything Activision publish in the future. The future of gaming is bright, and today is fucking opposite day. Okay, so I'm going to round off this video with some inspiring words from an ally of ours in the Great War against the microtransactions, Mr. Kanye West. So, thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, then a like goes a very long way, and if you're new here, then, I don't know, maybe consider subscribing. I'd like to think that I make good content like this regularly, and you subscribing and liking just reinforces that, so go on. Why not? Treat yourself. Happy New Year, guys, and thank you for such a damn good 2017. I cannot wait to make 2018 even better. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.